Hello and welcome back to Critical Listening with DK. I am your host, DK. Today we're taking a look at a new song called Runway by Lady Gaga and Doechii. This episode is sponsored by me. Go to dkmixes.com if you want high-end mixing and mastering services. Now, I will say that I'm a little bit more expensive than your local mixing engineer. So if you want the best, go to dkmixes.com. Lastly, another thought for the video. You're listening to this through some form of YouTube compression, possibly on some less than ideal headphones or speakers. If that's the case, don't worry. I will say I am no elitist in any sense of the word, but I am listening on top-end monitors in a highly controlled acoustic environment with subs that go down to 16 hertz. So just keep that in mind and take my thoughts with a grain of salt. Here it is, Runway by Lady Gaga.
No matter what, you got to strut. Walk, I'm feeling vibe, I'm feeling free, I feel exceptional.
Love that intro. There's some left to right balancing stuff going on as well as the filters. Immediately, the kick drum hits super hard when it comes into. I love it so far. Here it is.
Hate all you want, but I'm dangerous. You're gonna burn your tongue on this tea. Might show up late, might be on time.
Now, Lady Gaga's vocals in this first verse will change from the chorus. I've already listened to the song a few times already. So right now, the texture of her voice and the EQ, the recording, sounds different from how it's going to sound texturally in the chorus. In this part of her vocal, there is some natural upper mid-range resonance, upper mid-range information going on, but in this song for both Doechii and Lady Gaga, there's also a lot of 10K. We're going to talk a little bit about that 10K frequency, 8 to 10K, as well as de-essing and what my thoughts on de-essing for engineers and producers like yourself, right? But we're going to keep going. Just pay attention to her vocals and how it changes, not just the effects, but the EQ qualities of her vocals as well.
Just wait, I'm coming. This paparazzi routine, bitch, I came to be seen. Yes. Serve a little sass. Yes. With a little side of ass. Yes. Got the front row screaming, okay. Yes. Do a little twirl. Yes. Let them know I'm that girl. Yes. Monday through Sunday, I can turn the dance floor into a runway.
Okay, so a couple things. Turn it up, turn it around. You'll notice that her vocal quality is different. Not just the reverb and the distance, the dimension, but also just the EQ. There's a lot more 2K, 1 to 2K resonance. I can pull it up here in Pro Tools. In the vocal that is used in that section of her verse versus the other more pop, shiny stuff in her verse and Doechii's verse. So Doechii has a lot of this stuff as along with Lady Gaga. So let me pull it up here. Here's an EQ.
Hate all you want, but I'm dangerous. You're gonna burn your tongue on this tea. Might show up late, might be on time. Just wait, I'm coming.
And then in that chorus,
Okay. Little twirl, yeah.
where is
I can turn the dance floor into a runway.
which kind of adds a different flavor tone, not just the reverb as well. And there's less of that reliance on 10K, which can make it sound a little bit more distant, but it's also, it's not better or worse. It's just has a different feeling to it, which makes it feel, instead of two lead vocals, there's this background, distant vocal texture. And then there's Doechii with less long throw reverbs, like these longer reverbs. It's like really great contrast. Contrast is something that we'll talk about more along the lines, but contrast is incredibly important for both arrangement as well as the mixing part of this. Also, you'll notice that in the beginning of the song, there's tons of low end in that kick drum. The harmonic content is quite low. And then there's the vocal stuff that's still lower than the kick drum. That's part of it. For the culture of the genre, for the sound. Again, the reason why I'll bring up genre cultures quite often is because the tone and sound, the mixing, the arrangement of these songs will trigger memories, this nostalgia from other familiar versions, similar versions of that song. Like as a consumer, even as a professional, especially as a professional, we have to pay attention to the cultures and how it triggers different emotional reactions to a mix, to a song, right? But in order to feel similar enough to be accepted by a general consumer, we have to at least pay homage or pay respect or play with different cultures of different genres. Now, if I were to make this a little bit more less EDM, more rock, right? We'd bring up different elements, and that would make the record feel different. But this record feels exactly how it's supposed to feel like. This is mixed very, very well. I have no critiques for this mix, and we're going to keep listening.
Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway. Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway. I can turn a dance floor into a runway.
Okay, so I'm going to point this out now as you listen to this. In this Doechii verse, you're going to hear a lot of effects automation. So first off, there's this, across Lady Gaga's vocals and her vocals, there is this like slight, very short reverb or like just reflections. I can't tell if it's like some very quiet doubles or if it's just the reflections, very short reverb or whatever it is. There's some non-reverb, typical reverb sounding reflection going on, which makes the vocal sound a little bit wider, a little bit more in a room, gives it a little bit more dimension space-wise. You're going to hear at different points in a verse reverb throws, delay throws, and then there's going to be a couple lines where they completely go dry, including that double or that very short reverb reflection tone. It's super interesting. Just pay attention to the contrast there.
I could turn a dance floor into a runway. Tell them make room, my body's an entree. I could turn a mad hoe into a fan. Cameras flashing, lights on, fuck it up. Click, 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 everywhere I go. Get it, can't get me, face card froze. Never gonna see me waiting at the door, no. Get out the way, ho. Yeah.
An absolute masterclass in making a rap vocal give so much personality with just effects. There's that very short reverb reflection thing, there's delay throws, there's reverb throws, there's complete dryness. What an absolute masterclass in effects. So amazing. And I will say, like, there's going to be valid arguments of like, will the consumer be able to tell? I don't think the consumer will be able to articulate why there's so much personality, why they like the sound of it so much. But us critical listeners, us engineers and whatever, we're able to articulate exactly why. They may not be able to articulate why, but there is an obvious sense of expensiveness, this tone of expensiveness that's doing something. I think it's like all of these small, little, barely noticeable things that even the consumer can pick up on.
Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway. I can turn a dance floor into a runway. Tell them make room, my body's an entree. I can turn a mad hoe into a fan. Cameras flashing, lights on, fuck it up. Click, 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 everywhere I go. Get it, can't get me, face card froze. Never gonna see me waiting at the door, no. Get out the way, ho. Yeah. Serve a little side, yes. With a little side.
I have to say that too. Like, it's also impressive with, partially because the mix and the arrangement is so subtle. There's a lot more sonic headroom to be able to add sort of this stuff at a lower volume. Like if we had a very, very dense room mix with lots of elements, there's less room to add effects. We're going to have to turn those effects up. And it's partially because it's less dense in that section there. But it's also very subtle. I'm surprised how subtle everything is and yet how clear everything is. There is this dramatic space contrast thing going on. Something's changing with her vocal even though nothing's changing at all. It's very fun. It keeps, like, perfect for the ADHD listener.
Yes. Got the front row screaming, okay, yes. Do a little twirl, yes. Let 'em know I'm that girl, yes. Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway. Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway.
Again, I'm noticing it now. Listen how quiet those keyboards are.
Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway.
And then they turn up that synth there in that section. Also, notice that in Doechii's vocals in the chorus, they have this like either doubled, this synthetic lower vocal, like with Altar Boy or something similar, or it is just recorded at that lower note there. But there's this double that is in the lower octave that makes her vocal sound so thick and so big in that chorus.
Monday through Sunday, I can turn a dance floor into a runway.
My guess is that it's some sort of synthetic pitch down, like with Altar Boy or something like that, because it's not just the note. There's also some formant shifting going on. My also guess is that there's a chorus. Again, these are all guesses. I'm not seeing the session. But some sort of doubling or chorus is going on, makes it extra wide surrounding her main vocals. I think it's just so cool. Okay, in this section, pay attention to, again, that pose delay is super loud. They're going to do that same exact ping pong quarter note delay, but you're not going to hear it as loud in the second and third phrase of the bridge. It's so cool. It's subtle, but it's like something about it that like pulls your attention. It's like really well done.
Pose. I ain't scared of no cameras. Born for the runway. Sashay, Doechii. Pose. I ain't scared of no cameras. Born for the runway. Sashay.
Okay, one of the things I'm going to have to point out now, and this is the a side product of the physics of speakers and low end, right? This is overly reductive and overly simplistic, but I'm going to simplify it for you to understand. Okay, think about a speaker and a woofer, right? The slower the woofer moves, the lower the frequency it's going to produce. The faster it moves, the higher the frequency it's going to move. The deeper it moves, the louder or quieter the amplitude is, right? And how loud it's going to be. Now, imagine that you have a bass. The bass, it's a droning bass, like we have like this cool synth bass thing going on. It's trying to do this loud volume, slow movement. And then you have a kick, which every quarter note, it's supposed to do this bigger thing, but also slow, similar speed movement. And you're trying to reproduce with a single woofer these two tones at the same exact time. That's very difficult for a mechanical woofer to do. And that's just the inherent limitations of the physics of speakers. That's just what it is. And we've lived with that our entire lives and beyond. So, and we're going to continue to live with it. This is why hearing the low end and balancing the kick and the bass is such a big deal. My guess here is that the bass is at the same volume. The kick drum at the beginning of the song in the verse 1 is the same volume as the kick in this part of the song where there's now a bass. So I'm going to play verse 1. I'm going to go back and forth. Listen to the low end punch of the kick drum. So when you have a kick drum without a bass line, just the kick drum, you'll hear it really punch all the way to the lower frequency. But now in this section that it's competing with the bass, you'll hear that the kick drum punches less, even though it's probably the same volume. So I'm going to play a little bit of this chorus section here, and then I'm going to go back to the first verse. Listen to the kick.
I'm feeling fab, I'm feeling free, I feel exceptionally me. Hate all you want, but I'm hate all you want, but I'm dangerous. You're gonna burn.
Like, it's very subtle, but there is this like super sub-frequency limitation going on. It's something that you have to consider. This song is about to get louder and more dense towards the end as well, so you hear it squish even more. Again, not a bad thing. The mix is well done. There is an element of give and take in every single mixing and mastering session. And then you have to think there's so many different elements to consider, both macro and micro. And so I'm just pointing out that when you arrange, like especially you producers out there, when you're making arrangements and you want this deep kick, just like in this EDM song, consider moments when there's no bass to emphasize that kick if you want to. It'll also help with the overall loudness of a song. There it is. Incredible mix, incredible song. Yeah, really fun. Let's take a look at a couple things here. One things at the very, very end, it starts to get muddied with about 3K. Not a bad move. I should take back what I said. Not muddied with 3K, but there's a lot more 3K, which adds, and there's white noise too. Let's listen to that white noise first. It's like right around here. You can hear it. The producer added this side chain white noise. That's a lot of like that. What is that? 4 to 3K. And there's a lot of that stuff, but it sounds incredible. If I pull out this 3 to 4K, the whole mix will become smoother, but it'll lose energy. So consider this, producers, engineers. When I pull it out, when I bypass this band here, it'll sound a little bit more harsh, but it'll be more energetic. Emotionally, it translates as energetic. So it'll be smoother when I cut it out, but it'll feel louder and more energetic when I bypass it. Listen. It's subtle, but especially when with like an overall master or a mix, that's going to be a fairly big difference. Not just that, but there's also going to be in the mastering phase, there's going to be a perceived loudness difference. Like meter-wise, it's probably going to show exactly the same LUFS or volume, but listening to it when it's bypassed, when we have that amount of 3 to 4K, it sounds a little bit louder, marginally louder. And for whatever reason, our brains are built to prefer and like the sounds of things that are louder. That can work for us, that can work against us, but it is what it is at the very least. So something to consider as well is how these frequencies, it's not just like getting out stuff that is distracting. There's also some like the psychoacoustics of hearing frequencies and how they tell the brain to feel, to react based on like the culture that we have. So for example, like in America, we listen to American songs, mixes. We have that as our repertoire, all of us, as a consumer or as critical listeners, right? But if you listen to that, it's very obvious that something changes. We may not be able to articulate exactly what changes, but for me, it's an energy difference. And I think that the way that I mix, I would have naturally felt the need to pull that out. Listening now with it still in there, I actually really like that white noise 3K, and I think I actually would have made it a little bit too smooth had I done it myself. You let me know in the comments. Maybe you prefer with it a little bit dipped. Really great mix, really great song. I'll have the credits of the mixer and the mastering engineer in the bio. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this episode is sponsored by me. Go to dkmixes.com if you're interested in having me mix your next record.